All right, what's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 16 of Blake&VishSports. Sports. And today's episode, we got a couple topics that we want to cover. Talking about the disgruntled stars, which is becoming more and more popular. So, there's been Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz. I don't know if you'd call him a star anymore. He was at one point, and then there's J.J. Watt, now released. Russell Wilson's been in the media a ton, and then we did want to do a little Q&A part. It is the offseason, so it's a little slower, but we do have some topics that we do want to talk about. And before we get into that, so Vish, how are you doing? And how is school?
Yeah, I'm doing good. School has not been good to me. There's a lot of work after this stream. I got to go back and get into it. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about all the NFL stars on the move. Like, I'm really interested to see how this Russell Wilson thing turns out. I think I'm 95% sure he's staying in Seattle. Yeah. But man, I'm crossing my fingers that he somehow moves, because it would be huge for me as a Niners fan.
The bad man will be gone from your life at that point when he leaves the NFC West.
Right. So you want to start there?
Yeah,
Thoughts on Russell Wilson?
Thoughts on Russell Wilson. So the whole story behind this is, through the years, he's kind of been really quiet with the team, right? Hasn't really made too many demands. And now all of a sudden he's seen what happened. I think a part of this is they've seen what happened with Tom Brady when he just left and he got the best situation possible. I mean, that roster's loaded, right? Mm-hmm. And he's been stuck on a team with a bad O-line. Their defense isn't really that great anymore. It's pretty middling. Running backs can't stay healthy. They have good receivers. Tight ends leave something to be desired, but it's mainly the O-line. He's been sacked and hit a lot in his career. I think he came in, 2012 or 11?
2012.
I believe it was one of those 2 years. Yeah. And he's been getting hit a lot. They haven't really invested a lot of cash or capital towards the O-line. They've drafted a decent amount, but they haven't panned out really. But yeah, I think he's going to stay. I think it's just frustration. What are your thoughts on it, though?
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation to break down, because to me, I think the bottom line is, I think it's similar to the Aaron Rodgers Green Bay situation from 2 years ago, in the sense that I think it's just become stale. When you're making the playoffs every year, but you're getting kind of stopped the same way. Like, Seattle makes the playoffs every single year, but they haven't had long-term postseason success in terms of winning a championship game or getting to a championship game or winning a Super Bowl since 2014. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the constant, it's the same message, right? It's Russell Wilson, it's Pete Carroll. It's a similar roster construction every year. It's a similar team concept every year. They win a bunch of close games. Their team is not overly talented. They're well coached, and they have this really, really good quarterback, a top 5 quarterback, and they win the same way and they lose the same way in the playoffs. And I think that's what it is. And ultimately, I think the best solution to this problem is that I think they just need a new voice in there. I really like Pete Carroll. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. But at some point, this Pete Carroll-Russell Wilson marriage of trying to play football the way they are, I think it's kind of reached its maximum. I think they've shown that this is the threshold for them. And I think that's why, if you look at Aaron Rodgers, right, it was Mike McCarthy Mike McCarthy and him, the relationship got stale, right? Because that's just what happens when you're working with somebody for so long and you're not getting this, you're both not achieving what you want to achieve. And I think that's what I think is the long-term, what they should do. In the short term, I actually don't think there's a lot of validity to what Russell Wilson says. I get it. They haven't helped him out a lot in terms of what they do offensively. Asking him to throw the ball down the field so much isn't always the best thing for him, obviously, but I don't think he does a lot of help for himself. He's late on a lot of throws. He misses open receivers. He plays outside of the structure of the offense, and he's one of the best in NFL history to do it. But the drawback with doing that is that because he runs around a lot, even if he gets decent protection, which I thought he got decent protection this season, he's going to run into sacks. And that's what he's done his entire career, though his protection hasn't been that good at other times. Yeah, Brian Schottenheimer, they called a lot of deep throws. You can't run an offense where you have Russell Wilson drop back 45 times, because he's not this on time, on schedule, intermediate thrower like a Patrick Mahomes.
Throws with
So
anticipation, right?
right. So they have to do this, and it got Brian Schottenheimer fired. I don't think he actually. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Brian Schottenheimer is this great offensive coordinator, but I don't think he deserved to be. I don't think he deserved to be the butt of what Seattle's problems were last year. I thought they're bigger. I thought Russell Wilson was a little bit of a problem. So I'm just interested to see how it plays off. I really am hoping, honestly, more than anything, that they just part ways. Seattle becomes a dumpster fire, because the NFC West is looking daunting right now. But if you remove Seattle's guarantee of 10 wins with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, I think that it would look a lot better for the 49ers.
Yeah, so I have a couple things that I liked that you said. So the whole thing with the running into sacks, I think there's two statements to be made. One, that Russell Wilson's O-line has not been a top 10 unit probably ever. Maybe those early years when they had that crazy stretch of drafting between 2010 and 2012 where they were just hitting on all picks, right? He hasn't had a top 10 line, but his play style and the play style of running quarterbacks or more mobile quarterbacks leaves you susceptible to this. Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I think we've seen it with Josh Allen too. They're really mobile and they'll take deeper dropbacks, and it's hard because your O-line doesn't know where you are at all points. Like, you want to be like behind the center and in the middle of the pocket, but with those guys, they move around a ton, so it's kind of hard to know exactly where they are. So yeah, he takes more sacks that way, and yeah, their offense was built on a lot of deep shots and not taking checkdowns, whether that's how they wanted it to be or whether it was Russ refusing to take the easy 2-3 yard, 4 or 5 yard like check down to his tight end or whatever. We just really don't know that. So that's number one, and I totally agree. That's just the way the mobile quarterbacks are. And then number two, with the Pete Carroll situation, I'm with you. It reminds me a lot of McCarthy and Rodgers, although I think it's safe to say that Pete Carroll's definitely a better coach than Mike McCarthy ever was. I think the situation that's more like is the Philadelphia Eagles with Andy Reid. He was there a long time. He got them to 3 straight NFC Championship games. He won a lot with them, but it was never the Super Bowl, and it was never good enough. Now, he's not a bad coach. I think we've seen what he's done on the Chiefs, but it was just stale. They needed something fresh. They had Chip Kelly, and then they got Doug Peterson, and they won the Super Bowl. It all worked out, and it worked out for the Chiefs and Andy Reid too, right? Like, he got his Mahomes, he won the Super Bowl with him. You just need there comes a point in the NFL where you need to part ways, and I think that's happening soon here.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that it's so much of the same thing. I mean, we've seen kind of the same iteration of Seattle 4 or 5 years in a row, and they've tried things, right? They tried trading Max Unger and getting Jimmy Graham. They traded for Percy Harvin, and that one helped them win the Super Bowl. They traded for Jamal Adams. They keep trying things, and their defense got better at the end of the year. I'm not going to say it's a for sure top 10 defense, but it's a good defense. It's a good enough defense when you have Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams blitzing and all of that. But I just think that at some point you got to change it. And I didn't like the let Russ cook movement. If you remember, the first video we ever did on our channel, we talked about why we didn't think the let Russ cook movement was real. And part of the problem with it is Russell Wilson and his limitations, like his size. Yeah, there's a reason people look for 6'2", 6'3" quarterbacks. His height is an issue. Now, he's still great, right? He's still a top 5 quarterback for sure, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest to ever do it. But it's an issue if you have to drop him back 45 times like a Mahomes. He just can't do it. You need to run the ball and let Russ make 20 magical plays in a game, and that's how you win. And it looks crazy. It looks like a lot to put on Russ's plate, but they actually had the right idea on how you best utilize Russell Wilson playing that style. So I don't know. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I think it's just going to be one more year of the same before Seattle makes a drastic change. I think they're going to try to run it back, and so we'll see how it turns out. But someone did ask a really important question here. If they trade Wilson, what is his value? What do you think his value would be?
So we need to get lay down the contracts and all that. So he's like 32 or 33, which is weird to say, right? He doesn't seem like he's in his early 30s. And his cap hit for the Seahawks is like his dead cap would be like over 30 million. So right then and there, like I just cannot see them trading him unless they just wanted to completely rebuild for whatever reason. I would say it'd probably be a little more than Matt Stafford due to age and then also contract hit as well. I think he's a better quarterback than Matt Stafford. So what that is, because that's the trade that we can compare it to the most. That was the most recent for value. I think he'd be a little more worth than Stafford. So probably 2 first-rounders, 2 to 3, honestly, and then not Jared Goff's contract. I think that's what it would come down to. Maybe some mid-round picks.
Yeah, no, I think for sure it has to, even though Russ's contract is humongous, I think it has to start at 2 first-round picks. This is a top 5 quarterback. Matthew Stafford is like a top 12 quarterback, in my opinion. Russell Wilson is for sure a top 5 quarterback. So it's got to start at 2 first-round picks, and then it's going to be 2 first-round picks as a player. I think I'm really excited to see first what Deshaun Watson goes for, because to me it's going to be somewhere right in between Deshaun Watson and Matthew Stafford, but it's going to be a lot. So
exactly,
we'll see.
Because you got to factor in the age, right? Like that's the thing with Watson is he's like 24, 25.
25.
So when you get him, like you're getting him for hopefully the next 10 years. Russell Wilson probably will not. He will not be that long. Bearing a miracle, he will not play till he's 42. I believe he's 32, right? 32 or 33. He's up there.
I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, so that's the thing with him is he is older. Yeah, so he is 32. So you're probably getting like 5 to 6 years, and that's why he's somewhere between Stafford and Deshaun. So yeah, I'd say at least 2 to 3 first, and then some like day 2s. But yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Okay, so we have one more star that was he was released recently. He wanted to be released, and I wanted to talk about J.J. Watt. So what were your thoughts about J.J. Watt getting released, kind of how great his career was in Houston, and where do you think he should play next year?
Yeah, so I think this was trying to be nice for the Texans. They've had some bad PR for this whole offseason, even in the regular season too, right? So I think releasing J.J. Watt is the bare minimum they could have done, so they can let him go where he wants. I'm sure they could have gotten picks for him. I don't think they would have been high picks, but they could have got mid-round picks or some compensation, right? So I think that was good on them to like let him go and choose where he wants to go. I think this was the writing on the wall. If they weren't going to trade him, he was going to get released or go wherever he wants. I think his Twitter has been very active about anti-Texans, so that was there. His career, we could talk about that a little bit. One of the best defensive linemen I've ever seen. I'd say him and Aaron Donald are probably the top 2, at least in our lifetimes. Multiple defensive player of the years. I think he's the closest to winning an MVP for a defensive player in that 2014 season, I believe it was, when Aaron Rodgers won it. I think if the Texans make the playoffs, I think he has a good argument to make it, but he wasn't quite valuable enough as they didn't even make it. So there's that. And then the team that I think he will go to, everyone says the Steelers. I just don't see it. I know the brother, like basically the only reason would be because of his brothers, right? But they don't have the cap, and they already have a really, really good interior D-line. I want to say my Packers because we could use some interior D-line help. He's from Wisconsin. We could have taken him in the first round when he did go or traded up for him. I know he'd love to be here. I don't think that's plausible either. And here's a wild card that this team is interested, and I think they could make a move, is going to be the Buffalo Bills. They could use some bigger guys up front, some more star power on defense. I think he'd help them a lot. I think he would help them a lot. I think they should go for him. Stephon Diggs tweeted out that he wants them to get him. I think they need to go get J.J. Watt and help the Bills with their Josh Allen rookie contract years and push for the Super Bowl.
Okay, so that was a lot, right, to break down. And I 100% agree with you. When you're talking about J.J. Watt and his career in Houston, I think that we're talking the second best defensive player of my life. Maybe Von Miller, comes close, but J.J. Watt's right there. To me, he was like what Aaron Donald is right before Aaron Donald. In my opinion, Aaron Donald's the best defensive player I've ever seen. I didn't see Reggie White. I didn't see Lawrence Taylor. I didn't see all those guys. I think J.J. Watt would be right there. It's J.J. Watt or Ed Reed. It's right there, neck and neck. He was that good. One of the greatest players of all time. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. You can't say much. And I know that, and for me, in terms of the Texans PR, I don't think they can save face. So I think that they had, there was no win here. They could lose more by trading J.J. Watt and having him be unhappy, but there's no win here by releasing J.J. Watt. They just look okay. So now we get into what team he should play for next year. The two teams that have been thrown out are the Packers, right, and the Steelers. To me, the Steelers just don't make sense in terms of money. Yeah. And in terms of interior D-line, it's because people don't realize that Stephon Tuitt and
Cam
Hayward have been two of the better interior defensive linemen in the NFL for the past 5-6 years. They're really, really good. So while J.J. Watt would be really – and Tyson Alualu played really well for them last year. So they don't need any more bodies in there. Yeah. And so then Green Bay, I love the idea of Green Bay. I just don't know how Green Bay makes it work with the money. I know Preston Smith, letting him go will help a little bit, but it's not like Green Bay is just swimming in cap space to make it happen. So then we get to teams like you mentioned, and to me, there's 3 teams that I'm interested to see get him and make it happen. There's 4, actually. The first one I'm going to throw out is New England. I think that New England is the kind of player that they would make a run at, and I think J.J. Watt would be able to be really good for them. I know his wife lives in Chicago, but I'm not going to say the Bears. I think Akiem Hicks is one of the better interior defensive linemen in the NFL. I think he's really underrated. I don't think the Bears really need him. The second one, and I think this one makes the most sense in terms of cap space, is Indianapolis. Indianapolis, again, this is the kind of player that they covet, a veteran, proven player that they can bring in. They did it with Justin Houston, right? And I think J.J. Watt would be similar, though Chris Ballard was involved in drafting Justin Houston. And then the third and fourth are the ones you mentioned. And both the Titans and the Bills are over the cap slightly right now. So you mentioned the Bills. I think he would be a great fit. The Bills need a interior defensive lineman, right? They need an interior presence. I really think that Star Lotulelei opting out really affected their defense, and I think J.J. Watt would be humongous for them next to Ed Oliver and with Star Lotulelei coming back. And then the other team is the Titans, and it's because Mike Vrabel coached him. He was the DC in Houston for a year. I'm sure there's a relationship there. And the Titans really need someone next to Jeffrey Simmons. The loss of Jarrell Casey hurt them. The Titans actually just need anybody that can get pressure on the quarterback. And so I think that Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry and J.J. Watt would be really solid, and he would be really huge for Tennessee. So those would be the 4 that I would kind of look at and say, yeah.
Okay, and now I have a question for you. What do you think he will sign for? So he's been injured a lot over the last few years, to say the least, right? He hasn't been able to play full seasons. It's a down year for Cap, and he is over 30, and he hasn't shown his level of production that he did in the early 2010s as he has the last few years. How long do you think he'll get a deal for? Do you think there will be a lot of guaranteed? How much cap do you think is going to be eaten up by his contract?
I don't think he's going to get a big deal, and I don't think he's looking for a big deal. At this point, I think he's going to be best used as a rotational type player. And I think the big difference between him and another guy who was a Hall of Fame level player, not as good as JJ, but switched teams around this age, was Calais Campbell. I think the big difference is that JJ Watt has a lot more wear and tear on his body in terms of big time injuries with his pectoral. I'm pretty sure JJ Watt had a back injury. So, and Calais Campbell didn't have those things, but I think JJ Watt will be somewhere like 2 years, $18 million, 2 years, $20 million, something like that, $10 million a year. I don't know the guaranteed number, but I don't think JJ Watt himself, he's made so much money. I don't think he cares about the money. I think he cares about the situation, the fit, and trying to get the Super Bowl, because the Super Bowl is the only thing on his individual resume that's missing. He's got every accolade that any player wants. Yeah.
I'm with you. So my thought process was it'd probably be cheaper, even a little cheaper than that. I wouldn't be surprised if – so the way I view it is that either take like a 1-year deal that's like 12 to 15 million that has a lot of incentives, probably with playing time, winning games, playoff games and whatnot, or he'll take like a 2-year deal that's like 15 to 16 million. Maybe the first year is guaranteed and the second year is not guaranteed, but it'll be a shorter deal where the team has like an out if he gets a ACL or a career-ending injury or even season-ending injury. So I think those are probably the two most likely outputs. And then I did want to say with the Packers, so I know we touched on it a little bit, right? So they're kind of a little over the cap right now. They can get it down. But here's the thing. This could be the signing for them that is like that Julius Pepper signing they had a few years ago, where they brought him in 3-year, I think it was like $27 million a year. And he was like a leader, one of those veterans who's maybe a little past their prime, but still a good locker room presence. So that would be the argument for the Packers, but I don't think it'll happen, unfortunately. I think it'd be awesome having J.J. Watt. You can't double him and Za'Darius every time. And then Rashawn Gary would also eat, but it's more of a dream than a most likely reality.
Yeah, I think that the J.J. Watt to the Packers, I would like that. And I think that releasing Preston Smith still has them under the cap a little bit. So I don't know how they're going to fiddle with that. I'm sure they have a couple extra outs and stuff, but I think J.J. Watt would be phenomenal for the Packers. Mm-hmm. I think he's exactly what they need. They're missing size in their interior defensive line, which he would bring, and 2, they're missing interior pass rush, even though Kenny Clark had a very good season. They need somebody else, and J.J. Watt would bring that. I think the biggest problem I would say with J.J. Watt is I think with Green Bay, he would be asked, and he would have to be an every down player, which I don't know if that's the best way to utilize him at this point in his career.
Yeah, I'd imagine he probably would. They kind of lack talent for those 3-4 defensive ends that are in there. So that's Lancaster and Lowry. So if they cut Lowry, maybe draft a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round, get Lancaster and J.J. Watt, I would not be opposed. That sounds really good. But, yeah, the moves would have to be made, and it all depends on the contract at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, for sure. So now we didn't really have much else planned besides that. We're really just here to take your questions. Mm-hmm. There's a lot been happening in the sports world. So anything, basketball, football, life, just hit us and we'll answer them for the next 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes. I'm going to scroll up right now and see if there were any big questions that we missed.
There was one.
Oh, yeah. I did get a haircut. I got a haircut about an hour ago, actually. I realized that what was going on up there was a little too much to handle, so I decided to cut it. And Blake, it looks like your Wi-Fi is a little blurry. I'm reading in the comments. Do you want to just reload and come back in?
Yeah, I can come back in.
All right, this is a fun one. Where do I rank Brady in terms of all-time athletes? So I guess I can start this until Blake adds himself back in. Look, it's tough to rank Brady in comparison to a basketball player because I think that basketball players have bigger influence on the game than a football player does because you have 22 players on the field in football, you have 10 players on the field in basketball. Football players don't play 2 ways, and basketball players do play 2 ways. They play offense and defense. So I think that it's really tough to compare the two of them. Blake's back. So right now I'm answering this question. Where do I rank Brady in terms of all-time athletes? And then it's tough to rank him against individual athletes like Roger Federer. Everything Roger Federer has done, you can attribute to Roger Federer. Everything Rafael Nadal has achieved, you can attribute to Rafael Nadal. With Brady, right, to win a Super Bowl, he needed a Malcolm Butler interception. That play had 0 to do with Brady. So in terms of football players all the time, to me, he's right there with Jerry Rice, Lawrence Taylor, all those guys. He's as good as anybody to ever do it. He's the greatest quarterback to ever do it. Apologies for people who think it's still Montana. For me, I didn't get to experience Montana, and Brady's career and legacy is just overwhelming to me. Mm-hmm. in terms of all-time athletes, I have no idea actually how to place him on that list, because I think that you need a lot of context, a lot of nuance, and a lot of understanding what each athlete was responsible for. And it's really tough to decipher that in football in comparison to tennis and basketball and other sports like that.
I think this is a interesting question that's going to get brought up even more, especially when like Brady retires, right? I think legacy-wise, just talking pure like numbers, not taking into account watching them, I think he's up there for like top 5. Do I actually think he's like more athletic than, say, Lawrence Taylor, Aaron Donald, Michael Jordan, LeBron James? That's a completely different question, right? Like I would say LeBron James and Michael Jordan are far more athletic than Tom Brady ever will be. So that's the thing. For me, football, especially any position in football, it's kind of hard to rank them because there's so much that goes into winning a championship. I know, like you said, like the Malcolm Butler play, like if Drew Bledsoe doesn't get hurt, are we even talking about Tom Brady? That's a question that we could ask and say, I don't know, like would he ever gotten a shot to play? So I would say legacy-wise, he probably has one of the best, probably a top 5 legacy, just like with winning championships, going to the playoffs, postseason success, numbers, volume numbers, all that. But as a pure athlete, I would not put him with like Jordan or LeBron, just based off like the body of work and like looking at them as a pure athlete in that sense.
And I don't know if you can say this to be exact, because I think that Brady is a lot more physically talented than he's been given credit for throughout the years. I think that a lot of people are often, because he went in the 6th round and he had that ugly looking 40 and his picture shirtless before the draft did not look like an athlete. I think a lot of people are quick to dismiss his athleticism and say, hey, well, Tom Brady is this hardworking, he's the Cinderella story. Well, no, actually, Tom Brady has a really, really strong arm. Tom Brady was drafted to play in the MLB. Tom Brady played catcher. So Tom Brady's got a really strong arm. Tom Brady played in New England for 20 years and never had a problem throwing the ball in any kind of weather. That means he also has big hands. He throws as tight a spiral as anybody. I've seen Tom Brady on half a hitch throw the ball 60 yards. So then number 2, he's really smart. Like, how do you quantify how smart he is? Tom Brady is as quick a decision maker as we've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Number 3, and I think this is probably Brady's best trait, is that in terms of talent, he's got some of the best pocket feet we've ever seen. For him to still be able to manipulate the pocket at 43, stepping up, stepping to the side, stepping around, and the way he stays in throwing position, ready to throw the ball, it's really magical. So, yeah, he's not as fast as Kyler Murray, or he doesn't have as big an arm as like Michael Vick and stuff. But in terms of talent, Brady is every bit as talented in his own way. He's not a Rodgers or a Mahomes, but I think he's every bit as talented as a lot of quarterbacks, because I think that ultimately if he didn't have the physical talent, in spite of the intangibles and all of that, he wouldn't have succeeded at the level he has.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think it's really hard to quantify, like, you could say clutch gene. I don't even know if I'd call it that, but just like film study and then the culture that he brings. Like here's 2 guys that are similar bodies of work, and you could say Kirk Cousins has just as good of an arm as Tom Brady, but what's the difference? I don't know. Maybe culture.
I don't think Cousins has anywhere as good an arm as Brady.
You wouldn't even say it's like relatable? Not even close at all?
No, I don't think so. I think that Brady's arm is a lot better than people have given it credit for. And I think Cousins' deep ball is really good, but in terms of just throwing on a line, a lot of throws, like Brady throws far hash, he throws outs with pretty much ease, and I don't think Cousins even has the arm to do that.
Okay, fair enough. But I guess comparing those 2, what is the main difference? And I'd say it's like leadership, culture that they bring, like locker room presence, and that's all very, very hard to quantify, especially for just like obviously people like us that are just watching it. Like we're not actually in the locker rooms and stuff, so It's very difficult to quantify.
And then, so Blake, this one's for you. Would losing Aaron Jones hurt Green Bay?
I think it would hurt. They would lose an aspect of their offense that they would be very hard to replicate in the draft or free agency, and that's like the home run hitter. When Aaron Jones, fits through a tiny hole and then bursts for a 50-yard touchdown, like that is very, very difficult to replace. But I don't think it'll cripple the offense to the point that their offense won't be a top 5 offense. I don't think that at all. I think a running back success is more hingent on their O-line than their actual play. Like if you're a running back, Saquon Barkley, and he just keeps getting hit in the backfield for a 2-yard loss, like it's really hard for him to do anything. And I've said it before. I'm not really key on paying running backs a lot. You look at Super Bowl winners, and they always have a running back by committee. You can get good production out of J.J., LeGarrette Blount. We saw with Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones. I don't think you need to pay him a lot of money. I don't think it'll hurt too much, but I think there will be a dynamic that's missing.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's going to affect them in the sense that by losing Aaron Jones, they're going to become a bad football team. No, but I do think there is going to be a big loss in terms of Aaron Jones, and I think it's because he's a perfect fit for their scheme in terms of running the ball, and he's their only home run hitter on their offense. Exactly. Like, I like Davante Adams a lot, but Davante Adams isn't the guy that can score an 80-yard touchdown on any play for the Packers. They don't have any explosiveness to their offense, and Aaron Jones was the one explosive factor to their offense. I think that him getting hurt in the Tampa Bay game actually hurt a little bit, because now you can really play very tight, and there's nobody that scares you in the Packers offense to go over the top. He was the one guy that scares you a little bit because he's really explosive.
MVS, and he caught a bomb.
He also drops a lot of bombs.
Yeah, no, I'm only kidding.
Yeah, he's fast. He's really fast. He just isn't as explosive. I think fast and explosive aren't synonyms. Right? I think they're different, and I think that Aaron Jones is explosive, and I think they'll miss that, but I think that their offense and their team will still be fine.
And I really think they'll draft someone in the middle rounds that's like that more explosive type of athlete. Maybe that's the Trey Sermon out of Ohio State, or Chuba Hubbard, someone that's like super fast, and then also bring an element of receiving.
Michael Carter
too. We've talked about him, but like that element of just explosiveness, also receiving too. Because Aaron Jones was a pretty good receiver. Now he'd have some bad drops, but there was games where they would line him up outside and he would just kill linebackers. So yeah, they'll miss that from the offense for sure.
Do you think that the Bears have a chance with Dak, or is he a lock for the Cowboys? Also, what rookie QBs do you see with the Bears?
I do not think Dak will be a Chicago Bear. No. So he's probably looking at a payday over $37 million now. I think the Cowboys kind of screwed up this situation by holding off, because quarterbacks only get more and more and more expensive, right? So he's going to probably be pushing like $38 million is what I'd imagine. And the teams with that cap space, New England, I can't see them doing that. You could say the Colts maybe. Cowboys, I think he'll probably be a Cowboy, or the football team. Those 3 teams have a ton of cap and definitely are in play to get Dak. But it's looking like Cowboys, and looks like he's going to probably get franchised again and then maybe leave. But yeah, what do you think about Dak's situation?
Yeah, I think that Dak Prescott's franchise tag is going to pay him $38 million next year, right? And I think the Cowboys are going to franchise him. I think the Cowboys have absolutely wet the bed with how they've handled the Dak Prescott situation. To me, Dak Prescott is a top 7, top 8 quarterback in the NFL, and I think that if we're saying that only the top tier guys deserve franchise money, then I guess Dak Prescott doesn't. But to me, I think that that's not how the NFL works. And I think Dak Prescott 100% deserves the franchise money. And he's also like flawless when it comes to his off the field resume. And people always rave about his leadership. Do I think the Bears have a chance? I think they have 0 chance. Look, Dak Prescott's going to be franchised regardless of whether the Cowboys sign him to a long-term deal, because the Cowboys would be stupid not to franchise him next year. So if they franchise him next year, for the Bears to be able to get Dak Prescott, they would have to trade 2 first-round picks. That's not that bad, but I don't think the Bears could stomach his $38 million cap hit and then immediately pay him a contract that guarantees north of, I think, $70-80 million, and he's or $70 million, and he's paid from year one $35 to $40 million. I think the Bears, that would be really difficult for them to stomach, especially when they got Khalil Mack making quarterback money over there. So no, I don't think the Bears got a chance with him. And I think that the Bears are just going to have to settle for Carson Wentz and be happy with it. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, which rookie quarterback do you see with the Bears? Honestly, I don't see any of the ones that are going to be available for them to be with them. Look, people talk about Mac Jones, Kyle Trask, all of that. We live in Chicago. Well, at least when my college was open and I was going and I wasn't going from home, I went to college in the city every day. You need a very strong arm to throw in that wind. It is really the windy city. And I don't think Mac Jones and Kyle Trask have that kind of arm. I think that the best case for the Bears, I haven't looked deep into this quarterback class. I don't know which guys have a ton of tools that haven't been talked about. I've really only been looking at the Fields, the Wilsons, the Lawrences. So I'm excited to get into that, but I don't think that Mac Jones or Kyle Trask is anywhere near the answer of what the Bears require or need.
So they have is it 18th or 19th pick in this draft?
I think it's 19th, isn't it?
I believe so. So they're towards the bottom half of the first, more in the middle. So the top four right now, or the perceived top four, is Lawrence, Wilson, Fields, and Trey Lance. Those guys should all probably go top 12, right? So if the Bears wanted to get one of those guys, they're going to have to trade up, and trading up is pretty expensive in the first round. Then there's Mac Jones and Trask, who those are viable options. You could maybe argue. I just haven't really heard much news about the Bears being in on them. Maybe it's just that they're being quiet, but I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Vish, but have you heard really any news about the Bears being in on Trask or in on Mac Jones?
No, I mean, we're probably not going to hear it until it's closer to the draft, but all we've been hearing, right, or all people keep saying is that the Bears and Wentz, that's been the big thing, right? That's what everybody keeps saying. So I'm assuming that that's where their focus is at the moment.
So I think they'll probably run it back. I don't see them drafting one of the top 6 guys. Maybe they'll draft a middle round quarterback, or maybe
they're picking 20.
They're picked 20. Okay, so they'd have to trade for one of the top 4 guys. If they like Trask or Mac Jones, then they could be in a position, maybe have to trade up depending how the board falls, because we don't know if there's going to be a run on tackles or run on quarterbacks. There's some good corner quarterbacks. It depends how the board falls, really.
To me, the Bears got to draft an offensive lineman. Their offensive line is not good at all. They really need to draft an offensive lineman, and I think that would be huge for them. And I just think that they're a badly constructed roster. They're a poorly managed team. I think they're just a ticking time bomb waiting to blow up. I thought it was going to blow up last year. They salvaged something and made the playoffs. I think this year they blow up a little bit. What kind of move would it take for the 49ers to make the Super Bowl with Jimmy?
You want to go first on this, Vish?
Sure. I just think I don't know if there's a move here that's going to present itself for the 49ers to make the Super Bowl with Jimmy. I think that we've seen the capabilities of this team with Jimmy Garoppolo as a starter in the best case scenario, right? We saw it in 2019, and they lost the Super Bowl. And to me, that's the ceiling. I still think you can win with Jimmy Garoppolo. He's shown that he's more than capable. We harp on his limitations so much because they're very real, but he's still a valid starting quarterback that you can win with. He clearly has a positive effect on his team and all of that. I've never heard anybody say a bad word about him. Everybody seems to like him. I just don't think there's a move that you can make because I think he's a very ceiling player. Because when you look at him as a quarterback, I mean, what traits are you really relying on here with him? His field vision is at time, it's for the most part, it's limited. He doesn't see the field too well. He has a great quick release, but he doesn't have an overly powerful arm. He doesn't throw the ball well outside the numbers or deeper. So when you have these limitations, I think, well, you can say get a superstar receiver, but you're a superstar receiver. Like you can get Julio Jones, but Jimmy Garoppolo's physical capabilities limit what you can do with Julio Jones. So I really don't think there's a move here for the Niners to sit back and say they can make it with the Super Bowl with Jimmy. I think if there's one, it would be get a Dalvin Cook in the draft and have Dalvin Cook like a Dalvin Cook type player healthy for 20 games and Shanahan scheming it up, and maybe you recapture the TD Denver Broncos brilliance, but their quarterback was still John Elway. So
yeah,
I would say maybe that's the best case, but yeah, that's where I stand with that.
So I think there's not one move that's just gonna like put them over the top. One, like if they get one player, it could be anyone. They're not just gonna propel into like the top of the top, right? So I think there's 3 things that I know we've talked about. So probably interior offensive line, getting that play up. And this is like we're saying if there is Jimmy the starter, right? Like,
yes.
So, yeah. Interior offensive line probably needs to improve. Get healthy on the defense. I mean, Niners were hit pretty bad by COVID and just other IR injuries in general. And then I think the other move is secondary. Like, they don't really have many cornerbacks that are under contract past 2021, I believe. And safeties, too, Jimmy Ward and Tart. So both those guys' contracts are up within the next year. I know Tart's is up this year. Is Jimmy Ward's up this year or next year?
Jimmy Ward is 2 more years.
2 more years, okay. So,
but their corners, they have none of their corners signed. Exactly. Emmanuel Mosley is going to be a restricted free agent, so you can assume they're bringing him back.
Yeah.
Kello's a free agent, Richard Sherman's a free agent, and then Verrett, they really need to sign Verrett. So they do need help at the cornerback position because they don't have bodies.
And then I think my third thing is they just need to get a healthy running back. Like, I don't know what is with the Niners, but whatever running back is back there looks amazing, right? But I think they need some like continuity with having 1 or 2 guys that are actually going to remain healthy. So whether that's Mostert and then someone else to be healthy, I think that would help them a lot instead of just shuffling. I think their receivers and tight ends, they really just don't need to do much there. Their D-line solid, just get healthy there. Maybe look for another D lineman, but I don't think so. I think their linebackers are fine. Mainly just interior offensive line, corners, possibly safety, and then healthier running backs.
Real quick, Blake, it looks like your Wi-Fi is acting up. If you want to switch your Wi-Fi one more time,
I can
just come back in. Yeah. So I'll just continue to hold it down until Blake comes back in here. I didn't even know. I wasn't even aware that Grant got a haircut. It's coincidence. We didn't get one together. No, it's funny. Yeah. So this question has been on here quite a bit, right? I've seen it in a few times. I think now that Stafford's off the board, what is the best plausible move at QB for the 49ers? So the Niners are kind of stuck here, right? I mean, we're talking about there we go. We're talking about a bunch of different moves that they could make, but look, at this point, people throw out the idea of Sam Darnold and all of that. I mean, we did a video on it. I don't want to reiterate my opinions on it. If you want to check it out, we go to our channel. There's a video on how we feel about Sam Darnold. But here's the thing. You have 3 top 12 quarterbacks in your division. So, yeah, you can get a little better than Jimmy Garoppolo, but is that going to put you over the top in your division? I don't think so, because you need a quarterback that can go head-to-head with Matthew Stafford, that can go head-to-head with Kyler Murray, that can go head-to-head with Russell Wilson, or at least hold its own with when Kyle Shanahan schemes it up, right? So you need a top 15 type guy. And that's what I would think. And, Kirk Cousins would fit that mold. I don't think Kirk Cousins is available, and I don't want Kirk Cousins to be the quarterback for the team I cheer for. I'm going to always say Kirk Cousins is underrated, and I think he's a good player, but I'm never going to sit here and say I want Kirk Cousins for the team I cheer for. And so I think that what I'm zeroing in on, right, it's like I'm going through like the stages of grief because I was so convinced that this was the move for the 49ers, as you guys know. I've been talking about Matthew Stafford since the first time I ever did anything like this, and that was with Grant. And I've started off. Blake knows I've been talking about Matthew Stafford since last May, so I've been all over that one. And what I'm coming to is I would like two things. One would obviously be Deshaun Watson. The price is steep. The contract is steep, but at this point, I think the Niners have to be a little desperate because they have a win-now team with a closing window and a division that looks super steep. So I think that making the power move for Deshaun Watson would be huge, and who wouldn't want Deshaun Watson on the team they cheer for? I mean, he epitomizes a franchise quarterback. I think the other move that I would like, and I think that this is what I'm coming to more and more, is when I look at the quarterbacks in the draft, to me, I don't think that Trey Lance is worth the pick at 12. I just think that there's too much with him that is a little raw for my liking.
Yeah.
And I like Trey Lance. I think he's a really great runner. I think he has a lot of potential as a passer. I think a lot of the stuff he did at North Dakota State is translatable to this offense. I just think that if they could trade down and draft Trey Lance, it would be more than ideal. To me, I'm zeroing in on the idea. I would like the Niners to be aggressive and go up and get a Justin Fields or Zach Wilson. Now, is that possible? Probably not. I mean, I think that they're in kind of a damn if you do, damn if you don't move, because they don't want to overpay. But at this point, if you're going to get a quarterback, or you're going to get a quarterback that you think is going to be a top 12 guy, you're going to have to overpay. And this is kind of my problem with fans across sports, okay? All I hear all the time is fans want to throw out this idealistic reality of you do whatever you can to go get your quarterback. And then a team like the Rams does whatever they can to go get their quarterback, and people say they overpaid. There's something not adding up there. If you do whatever you can to go get your quarterback, that means whatever price you pay is going to be an overpay, because that's the reality of the business. The quarterback is valued so highly in the NFL that any person that goes and gets their quarterback is going to overpay for their said quarterback. Mm-hmm. So I think that the Niners are in a really sticky spot. I think that would be what I would like, but ultimately I'm not totally against. I'm rounding out to running it back with Jimmy and getting a different guy. Now, I think that team would have a very defined ceiling, and I think that you have to hope Jimmy stays healthy. And because the unfortunate reality of it is I don't ever call players injury prone, because I don't even know what that means. Like, how can you say there's no scientific?
There's only one. There's only one, and that's Jordan Reed.
No, but
I think you can label him as injury prone.
But the thing is, there's nothing scientifically wrong with Jordan Reed's body causes him to get. It's a mixture of luck and opportunity. And it's all of that. So, like Thomas Davis, remember, he was injury prone for 4 years, and then he played 5 years without ever missing a game. So I don't ever want to label a player that, but for whatever reason, Jimmy seems to be getting himself hurt, and so we'll see if he stays healthy. I hope to have more clarity on this situation soon, but right now that's where I'm at. I just dumped all my thoughts on there. I don't know if you could follow.
So I agree, it's a win now roster, and I think the most ideal quarterback, if they do get rid of Jimmy, would probably be Matt Ryan. The Falcons have said they're not looking to trade him, so that's like kind of the main issue. They looks like they might draft a quarterback and then just have him sit for a year behind Ryan. But if Matt Ryan were available, I think he'd probably be the best that they could get. And even then, would it be enough? Is he still that good? He is getting up there in age. I think he's 35 or 36.
He's 36.
Yeah. So he's up there in age, but he'd probably be the best guy that could potentially get traded. But yeah, even then, it's still kind of tough.
So with Ryan, the Niners wouldn't be able to take his contract, and I don't think the Falcons would eat that dead money. We're seeing the Eagles and the Rams do it with Goff and Wentz, but I think the Falcons are pretty contented with Ryan. And I think that the hiring of Arthur Smith was as much of maximizing Matt Ryan for at least a year or two as it was to just get a new coach and all of that. I think if they wanted to rebuild and tear the whole thing apart, they would have hired a guy. Right, and not an offensive play caller who runs a system similar to what Matt Ryan has had the most success in
Mhm.
his career with. So that's one thing for me. And then the other thing for me is with Matt Ryan, I think trading him post June 1st is the best possibility. And because the Falcons have so much dead money with him, and I don't know if the Niners can wait around for Matt Ryan
Yeah.
post June 1st and play that game. It's really dangerous because I think Jimmy Garoppolo, you can't cut him for $2.4 million post June 1st anymore. I'm not sure. I have to look that up. Don't call me on that. I am not sure on that, but that's just my guess.
Yeah. And, Matt Ryan would be like the only guy who you could put a rationale that would probably be the best guy that they could trade for. Like Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, like there's news with them, but it's all just talking heads. They're not leaving their teams, right? But with Matt Ryan, you see the incentive on both teams to actually get a deal done. But from what we've seen by the Falcons, they've said they want to keep Julio and they want to keep Ryan. They want to just maybe for the locker room, I don't know. It's interesting, but
This is a really, really great question. What Packers free agent should the 49ers sign, and what 49ers free agent should the Packers sign?
So for Niners to Packers, there's one guy who I wanted him to get him when he became a free agent after leaving Seattle, and then he went to the Niners. He's maybe a little past his prime, but I think Richard Sherman would be an interesting signing for the Packers. He wouldn't be the best scheme fit's the only issue. Maybe if he transitioned to a more slot role, I don't know if he could do that. I don't think so. He hasn't really done that, but he would be interesting. Just his leadership, I think, is the main thing. We desperately have a need for cornerback, with the most likely walking of Kevin King. Even though I don't know if it's totally fair if he should leave, but cap space requires you to cut, especially when it's decreased. He would be an interesting signing.
Yeah, so I'm gonna sound a little crazy with the name I say for the 49ers, and I'm gonna stick to the same position, and I'm gonna say Kevin King. And look, Kevin King had a horrible NFC Championship game. Let's just put that out there. Kevin King has played very inconsistent football for the Green Bay Packers. Let's put that out there too. And he got to play next to one of the best corners in the NFL, in Jair Alexander. But I just think that Kevin King, from the standpoint of he has been a starter, he fits what the Niners are looking for in a corner. They were thinking about drafting him in 2017. He has the requisite physical tools to play. And I don't think he would be mad expensive. And the Niners need, even after signing Jason Verrett, they need another guy to compete for the starting job out there. And with Emmanuel Mosley, and I think Kevin King would be a good fit from that standpoint, where if you can bring him in for cheap and just have him compete for a starting job, doesn't have to be a heavily guaranteed contract, doesn't have to guarantee him a starting job, but I think he would be a really good fit in terms of depth, and maybe the change of scenery brings the best out of his physical tools.
I do think that's interesting because I don't know. I think the way a lot of Packers fans see it is like Kevin King's gone for sure, but he has had moments of not being the best. I think his first few years, he was constantly injured, inconsistent play, but he's had,
He's played good.
2020. He's played good, yeah. As a number 2 corner, going from what we had in 2016 and 2017 with, undrafted free agents, Kevin King was a huge upgrade. I think he's a fine second cornerback if, you put him with a good D-line and there's, probably good safeties, but you could do a whole lot worse than Kevin King as your second cornerback.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing is Mike Pettin runs the Rex Ryan scheme, right? And if you remember, Antonio Cromartie used to get picked on a lot. And the thing is, they put their corners on islands a lot because Mike Pettin likes to blitz and go with kind of not fundamentally perfectly sound personnel and fundamentally perfectly sound defenses and all of that. And because of that, I think that when you got the one guy who's maybe the best corner in football in Jair Alexander, and he's just locked up on an island on the other side, naturally they're going to target Kevin King a bit more. And Kevin King's going to have some good games. He's going to have some bad games, but people are going to target him. And he's had a lot of bad games on national TV that people see, but I think that he's a low-risk, high-reward signing for the 49ers if they do get it.
And yeah, with his, with like a team's bargaining power against him for having his contract be lower could be injuries, and that could lower the guarantee. And maybe not as much as I think a comparable thing would be Quan Alexander. He got a lot of money, but it wasn't very much guaranteed. And so if he got maybe, I think Quan Alexander averaged like $13 million a year.
I think Quan Alexander was 4 years, $60 million, but like almost his contract wasn't actually like 4 years, $60 million.
Yeah,
he didn't get a lot of money. I don't think Kevin King is going to get anything that even the bare numbers look just like that in terms of like 4 years, $40 million.
I agree. But like the guarantee structure could probably be similar.
Similar, yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I like this one. Do you think Aaron Rodgers will win another Super Bowl before his career ends?
I think if he's getting paid $37 million, probably not. I think it's hard to build a roster around him at that price. No matter how good he is, there will always be the Mahomes, the Allens, the cheap quarterback who does 80, 90% of what he does and gets paid $5 million. And that's kind of how the NFL is going. I think if he restructures or something, I think there is a plausible chance. Like, they've gotten to the NFC Championship the last few games. They've gotten far. It's just not as far as you would like. I think they'll keep pushing or playing deep into the playoffs, deep into January. But yeah, if he's still getting paid, 38, 40 million, I think it'll be very, very hard to win a championship for him.
It's unlikely. I'm just going to say yes because I believe in Aaron Rodgers. That's it. That's all there is to it for me. I don't want to bet against Aaron Rodgers. I think he's one of the best to ever do it. I think that his 2011 season is the best quarterback season I've ever seen. I'm just not going to bet against him from that standpoint. Real quick, yeah, I know you asked this question. I saw there were a few people that asked that question about what the 49ers should do at quarterback. So I basically just picked the last question there. I know you asked it. I got you though. Someone keeps asking about the corners. Blake, I don't know if you've looked at the corners in this draft. I've spent very little time looking at them, so I can't give you a very educated answer here.
I know. So I'm with you, but I know there's a few names. So Patrick Surtain from Bama. I know he gets mocked to the Broncos a lot. They have a need at cornerback, and he would fill in well. And then Caleb Farley, I believe, is his name. And then there's a couple other guys who are like pretty good cornerback prospects that should go in the first round. But yeah, like Vish said, I haven't gone too deep into the cornerback realm.
Right. I know the names. There's J.C. Horn too, Joe Horn's son.
Yeah.
And I know Farley's supposed to be an athletic freak, but I haven't really watched him enough. And, we're hoping to get Eric Crocker on here soon, either next week or the week after. And so instead of us giving you our less educated opinion, I think it would be better for him to give you his expert opinion on this. So we'll definitely look to hit this question then.
I did have one that this was a dual-edged sword, but I thought this was interesting.
I like this question. I was going to get to it.
So what do you think? We could start with the first one. What are the New England Patriots going to do at quarterback? What do you think, Vish?
So I think there's three guys really here. I think that if the Niners move off, I think Jimmy G is a real big possibility for them. And I think Jimmy G at the right price is really a very big bargain for them. And I think they'll get Jimmy G for $10 to $14 million as their starting quarterback with a ton of cap, with 8 guys coming back, including key defensive starters like Dante Hightower and Patrick Chung, and a ton of picks. So I think New England's a sleeping giant in this entire league. Like, people are going to be surprised with how good they are next year. Everybody's really all over Tom Brady made Bill Belichick and all of that. And I think that narratives can change really quick because they were a 7-9 team with 8 COVID opt-outs, not a lot of cap space, not very bad receivers, and a quarterback that everybody tells me is washed. So I think that's interesting. I think Cam Newton's a possibility again. I thought Cam Newton didn't have a bad season. He had 12 rushing touchdowns. He had 8 passing touchdowns, and he was throwing to probably the worst weapons maybe in NFL history. When Brady played with those weapons last year, everybody said the weapons were the worst in football. When Cam Newton played with these weapons this year, everybody said Cam Newton sucks. I don't think he played that bad. So I think Cam Newton's a possibility. And then the third possibility, I think, is Stidham. For whatever reason, they seem to love Jared Stidham. I think Jared Stidham's a pretty good thrower. And I think that if maybe they can coach him and scheme it up and win with Jarrett Stidham. But from all the New England insiders seem to say last year that before the Cam Newton opportunity presented itself, the New England Patriots were convinced that they could go into the season with Jarrett Stidham as their starter. So I'm not going to rule out that possibility because of that reason. And then, is Zeke going to be in Dallas next year? Yes.
So I can go with the first one. So yeah, I think Cam Newton's a good point you brought up. So like you said, the cap, they have picks, right? They're going to get better on the offensive side of the ball with just overall talent, which should help a lot. And maybe they'll do another cheap one-year contract with him. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think number 2, Jimmy G's also like probably the most. If they sign someone, he's probably the most likely. That just depends on if he does leave the Niners, which we don't know yet. But they obviously drafted him. They groomed him that he was going to be Tom's successor. Tom played really well for longer than they thought, longer than anyone thought, really. And so they got rid of him because Tom Brady's still there. So now that he's gone, I think Jimmy is probably the most likely if they bring someone from out. And then they could always draft a guy. They pick 15th. They have the ability to go up, and if they like someone, they can go get them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ruling that out at all. I think they could draft one. So I think, either Cam, Jimmy G, or they're going to draft a guy.
I think they will draft a guy. I just think it's going to be a middle round guy. Whichever middle round guy they like, I think they'll draft him. They just don't strike me as the kind of team that wants to take the pressure of going up and getting a quarterback. I think they believe in their system. They believe in their culture. They believe that they can take a middle round guy whose talent they like Stidham, like Jimmy G, and try to work with that. I mean, they've taken a middle round quarterback for how many years, starting with, I think, Rohan Davey, Ryan Mallett, and there's been so many different guys they've taken. So I think, in my opinion, I think that's the route they're going to stick with. So this is a good question. Do you really realistically think the 49ers will greatly improve next year? I don't know what you mean by greatly. I think they'll be a much better team than they were this year, just a product of having hopefully George Kittle healthy, Debo healthy, Bosa healthy, and all of that. Like that's going to make you a great team. Are they going to improve in terms of, are they going to be the 2019 49ers? No way. I think that in the 17 games next year, I think the Niners have a really good shot at going 10-7, 9-8, and it's a product of their division. It's a product of who they have at quarterback right now. It's a product of their team. I don't know. Like, there was a big schematical advantage to what they did in 2019 with their quarterback that I don't think is translatable once again with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that's an aspect of it that people haven't looked at as much. It was first pointed out to me by a guy named Rich Madrid on Twitter. Should follow him. He does really great work with the film stuff, and he puts a lot of threads, and he can be a little harsh, but I think that he knows a lot, and you got to learn, and he's a really good person to learn from. So he pointed that out. So I think that's a good thing to check out. But I think, look, in terms of improving, that's what I would say. I think they'll for sure be a better team, though. When you have Kyle Shanahan and you have a healthy defense that features Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Jimmy Ward, and hopefully if they bring back Jaquiski Tartt, heck yeah, they're going to have a good defense and all of that.
I think the biggest loss from all those, so they already played without Buckner. They got the replacement there. I really think Salah's, like, that's the question. Like, how are they going to replace him? And if his replacement is not much worse, I think this team could honestly go like 12-5, 11-6. They're getting tons of talent back. Even going from Mullins and Beathard to Jimmy G is a massive upgrade. Like, that needs to be stated. Like, as limited as Jimmy G is, he is multiple tiers better than those two. And they're hopefully, like, injury luck sometimes carries over, like if you're the Chargers and some star always gets injured. But typically, like, they're not going to have as bad a COVID or as many injuries, hopefully. Like, it's obviously feasible, but like missing Debo and Kittle, debatably their best defensive player, Bosa, like, that's a ton of losses. So those guys are going to be back. They're going to draft people. Now, they are probably going to lose some guys, but it's really, to me, is how are they going to replace Salah? And like, if they can find a DC that does that, or the DC they have can do that, I really think they'll be a couple games above 500.
So I'm actually pretty bullish on, like, Salah's a good coach. I think he's going to be, I don't
Mhm.
know if he's going to be successful with the Jets. Not a lot of people are, but he's a good coach. He clearly had a positive effect on a lot of people. A lot of people respect him. But I think that there's often a little too much credit attributed to coaching, to
Mhm.
assistant coaches when you have a Kyle Shanahan. It's happened to Bill Belichick's coaches a lot. I think what Kyle Shanahan has proven is, one, he can assemble a damn good staff, and two, he can really coach his coaches to coach the way he wants to. I think that Saleh, I think that Kyle Shanahan assisted him a lot. And I think the thing that's special about Kyle Shanahan, a lot of people have pointed it out, is that he knows defense as well as he knows offense. And it's because his father has said it before. When he was at Quality Controls with John Gruden, he used to sit in a defensive meetings with Monty Kiffin and Joe Barry and Gus Bradley and Mike Tomlin and Raheem Morris, and learn defense from those guys. So he knows defense as well as he knows offense. That's why his offense is so brilliant, because a lot of the times he knows the defense so well that he knows what the rules are of a lot of players, and he puts them in spots of basically in spots of where their mind is a little cluttered on what their job is and what they're supposed to do, because Kyle Shanahan is that good. So I think he's going to have input and influence on the game plan, and he's going to be able to help D'Amico Ryans a lot. And they brought in James Betcher, who's a former defense coordinator, struggled with the Giants, was good with Arizona. I don't think the Saleh loss is going to be that big. I think it's just going to be, well, how do you recreate something with 2019 that's a little different? Your team is not as worse, and you have a couple of battle scars on your body that you didn't have then.
Yeah. So, what is your thoughts? Like, this is obviously, February. So, you're thinking 9-8, possibly 10-6.
I think it's right between. I think they're going to be right between
Mhm.
9 wins and 11 wins. They're going to be right in that range.
Okay.
I think you mentioned the top of it, 11-6, 12-5. I think that's the top. I think 9-8's the bottom. They're going to be a damn good team. It's just how good.
Yep, I'm with you. I think that's pretty accurate. And shout out,
Yeah, let's go.
Mr.
Put some
Khan.
respect on Blake's
Love to
name.
see it.
What's here? There were a couple good ones. So we've gotten this question a lot, actually, 2 or 3 times on our last few live streams. What is our goal with this? Honestly, I don't think there is a goal for us. It's not like we're sitting here looking to make this a profession or get some kind of clout or anything. We're just hoping. We're really passionate about sports. We spend a lot of time studying. We spend a lot of time watching it. We spend a lot of time talking about it. And we're just looking to take that and put it onto some kind of platform. And we're hoping other people enjoy it. And as long as other people enjoy it, we'll continue to do that. And we've really appreciated the support that every single one of you has given us. It's been huge for us. And as always, please like, subscribe to our channel, all of those things. But we really appreciate that. And I think that's just the bottom line. We're just looking for a casual platform where we can just voice our opinions about sports more than anything.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like, I guess long term, this isn't like super long term, like just hopefully in the next month. So we have some like ranking vids that we want to do. This second year wide receiver class, definitely for sure. Like, so we did this year's rookie class with like Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. That was like one of our best videos. We're hoping to do the one with like DK Metcalf, Debo, Scary
AJ Brown,
and AJ. Yeah, so we want to do that. We want to do other positions, and then hopefully draft stuff too, and like talk about prospects. I've been watching Zach Wilson tape and like highlights and that stuff recently, and I want to talk about him because I like him a lot. I know Vish still is like me and him still need to obviously look at the other quarterbacks too, but there's a lot up until the draft process that we're excited to like talk about and just like discuss.
Yeah. So yeah, that's ultimately it. Like, I don't think there is a final goal. Like, I'm studying computer science. That's where I'm pursuing to get a degree. I'm right now going through the same internship grind that anybody else is. And Blake is studying accounting, and he wants to become an accountant. And right now he's working and going to college. At the same time, he's interning while taking credits and stuff. So we're still like, that's our lives. But for us, this is just an opportunity to take something that we really enjoy, we're really passionate about, and just try and translate it in a way that hopefully other people enjoy. And so far the support has been overwhelmingly positive, and we just appreciate that from every single one of you more than anything. So what's the ceiling on Jacksonville this year? To me, the ceiling is playoffs. They can be a playoff team to me. And I don't know how good Urban Meyer is going to be. I have some questions about the staff he's accumulated, but here's the things that Jacksonville has going for them. 5 picks in the top 60. That's humongous. Generational quarterback prospect. I think, look, I have some questions about Trevor Lawrence's ceiling. I'm not sure that he's ever going to become the best quarterback in the NFL. I am convinced he's going to be a top 15 quarterback probably from day one. I think he's that good. I think he's that ready. I think he's that polished. I think his arm is that good. I think he's athletically that good. So I'm convinced that he's going to be a top 15 quarterback from day one and probably a top 10 quarterback for the majority of his career. So I think that they can for sure be a playoff team. They have tons of cap room. They have tons of young, talented players they've drafted. And so I think that they can be a playoff team next year. I really do.
So this is a topic that we really haven't discussed just because like how irrelevant the Jacksonville Jaguars were this year besides getting the number 1 pick. But I'm going to take you back a couple years. So 2017, this team looked like, wow, this defense is insane. They're looking promising. It's starting to fall apart. But the thing that they did really well was most of their guys didn't let them go for nothing. They got 2 firsts for Ramsey.
Jalen Ramsey.
That's insane. They traded Calais Campbell for not much, like a 5th rounder, but they say $15 million on the cap, right? Like that's the whole reason they did that.
And it's a pick.
Yeah. They've been making like really good moves for like quote unquote tanking. And it's not like they're just like fielding the worst possible players, but they're like managing their cap well, they're acquiring assets and doing everything that you could possibly want them to do. They got James Robinson. Cam Robinson's a pretty decent offensive tackle. Their O-line's not horrible. Chark, Chenault, they have decent receivers. There's room for improvement. And on the defensive end, they still have some young talent. Miles Jack's not bad. I don't know about
Josh Allen.
Yeah, Josh Allen. The other guy they drafted, I don't know how to pronounce
DJ Henderson, Kayvon Chase.
Yeah, no, they have a ton of just young talent. And they're only going to keep getting more. They're going to hopefully bring in some veterans is I think their next move. And then, like you did mention, I think the biggest question mark was what were they thinking with that the strengths coach they got? So he was a coach. Yeah. He was the strengths coach at Iowa, and I'm not proud to say it. So I go to Iowa, obviously, and so I've heard about this situation. And basically, they cut him for like enabling racism and just other just being a bad person, basically. And so they hired him, and he resigned within a day due to the backlash. Thankfully, I mean, that's probably the best possible thing. But like one of the things was he would like step on players' fingers while they were like working out or something like that would not work in the NFL. Like that, like you do that in college, and that's even like bad to do, right?
Right. But, which I think this actually segues into another great point about Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer has a pretty shady past. He's had some kind of weird things they've
receiver coach.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was ugly. Right. But you can go back to his Florida days. Yeah. He had Tebow, but he did not have a team of choir boys from the Pouncey brothers to Aaron Hernandez to Riley Cooper to Brandon Spikes to Percy Harvin. They had a team filled with a bunch of guys who had quote unquote character problems when they came out. So Urban Meyer, that's the only question I have. I don't have a question about Trevor Lawrence. I don't have a question about their assets. I don't have a question about their young talent. I really like DJ Chark. I think with Trevor Lawrence, he could be close to a top 10 receiver. I have a question. Is Urban Meyer going to be able to translate to be a competent college head coach? Because his past is shady, and I'm not sure that NFL players, I don't know. I have no clue if they would buy into him.
Yeah, so the Zach Smith situation that happened a few years ago, he was the receivers coach, and basically there was like he was involved with domestic abuse, and apparently Urban Meyer knew somewhat of it, but like it was kind of swept under the rug a little bit. So like that stuff doesn't work in the NFL, right? Like these are grown men getting paid millions of dollars. They're not worried about losing a scholarship like the college players are. So it'll be interesting to see like how that locker room is. I know they've had issues in the past with Tom Coughlin being there. Leonard Fournette was one of the guys who was really vocal about like just his dislike for Tom Coughlin, and other guys said it too. So, man, they're an interesting team for sure.
Yeah. We'll touch on this lightly. Look, we've really done Sam Darnold kind of heavy. So we did a topic before the Super Bowl on Sam Darnold. Go check it out. It's in our channel. And then Grant and I also hit Sam Darnold. So I've been kind of reiterating the same stuff. I think the pros is that Darnold has upside. I think the big thing with Sam Darnold is that he's still really raw. And I think that's what people got to get into their heads. He was very raw when he came out of college, and he's still the very raw player that he was. And I think that's what teams look at and say, I like it because I can still mold him. He's still 23. He's still raw. But you have to make a contractual decision on him in 1 year. That's what bothers me about Sam Darnold. I don't think you can win with Sam Darnold a Super Bowl next year. I'm not even convinced you could win 12 games with Sam Darnold next year because I think there's going to be a lot of growing pains with Sam Darnold. He hasn't improved a lot since his sophomore year of college. He was it was vastly overstated how good of a prospect he was because he was so raw. People said he was on the Andrew Luck level, but Andrew Luck was as polished. He played like an NFL quarterback his senior year of college. Sam Darnold just is a guy who can make crazy kind of clunky play, he looks clumsy, but he can make pretty ridiculous off-platform, timing, off-structure plays. But within the timing of the offense, in terms of his feet, everything, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, in my opinion. He's not Ryan Tannehill. To me, Ryan Tannehill was a polished veteran quarterback when he played with Adam Gase in Miami. I think there is an opportunity to win with Sam Darnold, possibly if the next 2-3 years go right for him. But to me, the best situation for him is to go somewhere, sit for a year, regroup, get his confidence, learn to play in a system with a really good structure like the Steelers, and I think you can maximize his talent from there.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a couple times, but yeah, basically, I think the draw to Sam Darnold is that people will say he looks bad because of the Jets and Adam Gase, and there probably is some truth to that.
There is.
Yeah, there really is. That is not the best situation for a quarterback by any stretch of the imagination, but you still expect some development, which has been lacking. And yeah, I'm with you. If he could sit behind a quarterback like I don't know, Fitzpatrick or someone like that, or just any veteran who's been there and done that, and then being in a strong system, he could be a somewhat formidable quarterback that wins 8 to 9, maybe 10 games.
Yeah, I think that's what it is ultimately, and I think what's really kept him alive in terms of his situation is because I think we've seen a lot of young quarterbacks go to crappy situations. That's kind of what ruins their careers. Niners fans know it. Alex Smith was put in the worst possible situation I think any rookie quarterback has ever been put into. And then his second year, his third year, he was just put into bad situation after bad situation. Worse situations, in my opinion, than even what Sam Darnold's had to go through. I think the big thing that saved him is that he had a very positive pre-draft perception. So a lot of people liked him. So the media's kind of protected him from taking backlash. But the bottom line is, yes, the Jets suck. Adam Gase wasn't good. Mike McCagnon was probably the worst GM in maybe the history of football. He was terrible. Every signing he made, every draft pick he made sucked. He did not know how to build a team. But Sam Darnold's play has also sucked. That's the problem. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. We've seen quarterbacks show glimpses of something in bad situations, and with Sam Darnold, there's no consistency because he's still super raw, which means that to me, he needs structure. He needs to go sit somewhere. He needs to regather his confidence. I don't think he's ready to go join the 49ers next year and the 49ers win 12 games. In my opinion, he's not at that level of polish.
And, he's been in the New York media, which is bad, but there's no expectations. I just can't imagine him being in San Francisco and the media there and just succeeding. I mean, it's a lot of pressure, right? If you become the Niners quarterback next year, if it's not Jimmy G, there is a win now expectation by the fans, the media, all of that.
If even whatever you think about Jimmy G, right? Jimmy G has this reputation where he's won. He has this phenomenal winning record. And to me, wins are not a quarterback stat. I don't think you can evaluate quarterbacks like that way. I think it's really dumb. And I also think that there's a lot of nuance and context that needs to be taken into account with each win with football. But the reality of the situation is that if Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch trade 2 picks to get Sam Darnold and get rid of Jimmy G, and Sam Darnold's still raw, which I think he is, and he has growing pains, which I think he will, and the Niners go 8-9 or 7-10, they look horrible. Sam Darnold looks horrible, and people would kill them for it. So I think it's really risky from that standpoint. I would, if he was on his third year, if this was 2019 and this opportunity presented itself, I would say 100% in for it, because you could sit him 1 year behind Jimmy G. You still have 1 more year to make a decision on his 5th-year option, and you have flexibility with him, and he's talented enough, because he's really got talent, where you could sit him for a year, get him comfortable with the system, and then work with him from there. I just think that because there's not a lot of contractual flexibility, because there is that 5th-year option that pays him $25 million looming, or he's a free agent in 1 year, and the fact that he's so raw and he looks so bereft of his confidence, I don't like the move.
And they have a guy who could potentially do similar things and was, the same level of prospect, maybe even a little worse. They have Josh Rosen on the bench. I would rather give him a chance, not have to pay the assets to acquire Darnold, and then also probably a year sitting, or at least some time, and just give Rosen a chance. I mean, he's been in just as bad situations as Darnold.
Yeah, right. If not worse. And Darnold is the more gifted player. I think we agree with that. But I do see where Blake is coming from, in the sense that maybe you don't give up that much to get Darnold if you're not convinced he can win a playoff game for you from day one. And maybe you just stick with Jimmy G and see if you can get something out of Josh Rosen, because there is talent there. This is just a follow-up, Blake, on Eric is asking the question, shouldn't you get something out of it, maybe working for a team? I mean, it's really hard to look forward into something like that. We're talking about things that are like totally outside of the realm of the possibilities that we think about. For us, honestly, it's just about hoping to put good, informed, well-educated content out the very next day and just continue doing that. And I hope we're doing that right now. I mean, I'm not sure, but that's what we're trying to do. I mean, if an opportunity like that presented itself, yeah, it would be awesome. But the odds of something like that happening are very slim. So we're just happy with what we're doing, and we're enjoying it.
And I think to go off of that too, like, we're not like watching film like 5 hours a day and like giving you guys these, crazy informed up to the minute on every single thing opinion. Like, this is just like, what we see, what we read and accumulate. And so I will never work for an NFL team unless it's in the accounting department or finance department or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if Vish will either, but
no chance unless I'm in the tech IT department. I'm customer support.
Yeah. And I did want to say too, like, shout out for the support that you guys have been giving us. We did just get monetized, which was like really exciting for us. I know we talked about it. Like when we originally started, we didn't think we would get the watch time hours or even subscribers for like a year or something like that. And we've gotten it. We started November and it's February. So it's been 4 months. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we really do want to. It's really because of you guys that we even got something like that. So we really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And yeah, like Grant we do.
Grant Cohen.
Right. Yeah, of course. Really, thank you to him. He did so much for us. And, the bottom line is ultimately, yeah, we don't study this enough. Like, we read, we do those things, we watch, we do all of that. But I don't think we do it at a level where we're as informed as we should be if we have to do it. That's why we do one live stream a week, because we try to be as informed when we do our stream, and we only have time to accumulate and gather and watch and do all those things enough to do that one time.
I thought this was a good one. The bridge QB, and there's a guy in mind that I thought. Do you want to go first though, Vish?
Nah, let's hear what you got.
All right, so this has kind of been under the radar news for an under the radar team, mainly because they haven't been winning since 2015, and that's the Carolina Panthers. So it looks like they're going to draft their Teddy Bridgewater successor. There's been multiple things that they've been in on Matt Stafford. They've been in on Deshaun Watson. They either want to draft a guy or they want to trade for a bigger name. And so the reason for that is because they have Bridgewater, who is I think he is the perfect, like, most average bridge quarterback right now. He he's not going to completely go out and lose you games, but he's also not going to just elevate everyone around him. The Panthers played a lot of close games this year with the Chiefs, not the Chiefs, the Buccaneers, the Packers. A lot of their games were really close. They lost a ton of guys from last year. Their team's really young. I really think they're a quarterback for away from making the playoffs and being pretty competitive in about a year or two. And I think Bridgewater is the perfect quarterback. If you just wanted, you have your young guy in there and you want to get someone in as a placeholder for a year, I think he is the most perfect bridge quarterback. And his last name's Bridgewater, so it just, it adds up that way.
Yeah, it flows. Yeah, for the Niners, I like the idea of Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton was a good quarterback in Cincinnati. I think that as the situation got worse, Andy Dalton got worse, and that's natural for a quarterback who doesn't have upper echelon top 15 type talent. I think Andy Dalton's consistently been a tier 3 quarterback. He's had some really, really good seasons like 2015. He's a really good player. He's a veteran player. I thought he played pretty well for Dallas in spite of their terrible offensive line last year. So I think he would be a great option, and I think he's relatively cheap, and he's not very much coveted. So I would think that Andy Dalton would be a fantastic option
I think
for the Niners.
Would be Fitzpatrick. I don't think he's going to leave Miami, but he's been the bridge quarterback for the last 5-6 years for teams. So he kind of just fits that mold. I mean, he's literally just been doing that for a long time.
Right. So, how do you guys honestly feel about Kyle Trask? Have you gotten a chance to watch some Kyle Trask? I have. So I have a pretty.
I have not. So I'll let you take the floor on this.
Yeah.
One.
So I'm pretty set on what I think about him. I think that some people are too hard on him. I think some people like him too much. I think that he's a 2nd or 3rd round pick as a quarterback. He's a solid college quarterback. Okay decision maker. Not a great arm. Pretty good movement in the pocket. Not bad. But I think that there isn't anything special here. I don't know if he can be a starter in the NFL. I don't think there's enough there, but I do think that he can be a good backup for sure in the NFL. I think he's a 2nd or 3rd round prospect. I don't think there's anything here where you have to say, oh, I hate Kyle Trask. I think he sucks, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't suck. He's a good player. That's why he's going to be drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round, but he's definitely not the guy that you trade up and go get as a franchise quarterback, in my opinion. So
one thing that I have kind of noted is this is a point that's been brought up is Kyle Pitts is an absolute menace. And maybe I'm just saying this what I've been reading. Maybe there's a Johnny Manziel, Mike Evans type of connection where 50-50 balls or 70.
No, there is because he does make questionable decisions that he gets bailed out by Kyle Pitts. That's why I'm not going to call him this great decision maker at all. I also I love Kadarius Toney. He's my favorite player in the draft, so I think he helps a lot. So I don't think there's a lot with Trask that you look at and just say, wow, superstar, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think he's bad. I think you can draft him in the 2nd or 3rd round. Maybe he develops into a marginal starter, like a bottom 12 type starter, but you can start and you can maybe win with him with a really good team. Mm-hmm. Who knows? But I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's great. I think he's just okay. And I think if you draft him in the 2nd or 3rd round, he's a pretty good prospect.
Interesting. Yeah, I just thought, I've read the Kyle Pitts situation. I mean, the dude's stats are ridiculous.
He's insane. He is insane. Yeah.
And even him, you don't know where he's going to go. He could go top 12 or he could go, end of the first. Tight end's a pretty volatile position where they get drafted usually. So,
I'll go on with Grant as long as he's willing to have me on for sure. Draft. I know a lot of people have been putting Davis Mills out. He's the Stanford quarterback. I've not watched a lot of Davis Mills. The little I've watched, I'm not sure he's a guy you take in round 3. Seems a little rich for me. I'll try and watch a bit more and get a better opinion, or maybe I'll just forget. But yeah, if Davis Mills starts hitting the rumor mill with the 49ers, you bet you I'll be looking Davis Mills up and hoping to watch. Hopefully I can get my hands on some of his tape too.
I thought this was interesting real quick. I think Minshew is worth more than a day 3 pick. So I was going to ask you, Vish, what do you think Gardner Minshew's value is? So as of now, he's not going to be the starter due to Lawrence coming in.
To me, you know what I think Minshew is? To me, Minshew is the new age Ryan Fitzpatrick. He had a ton of pass reps in college. He's pretty smart. He knows where to go with the ball. He has a little moxie. He has a little kind of swag to him. And I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to be everybody's bridge quarterback for the next 10 years. And I think he's going to last in the NFL for a while. I don't know why you would trade a day 3 pick for Gardner Minshew, though. And I don't know why the Jaguars would trade him, because to me, having a very, very good backup, which he is, behind Trevor Lawrence is great news for them.
Yeah, so I like Minshew. I like the just hysteria around him. I think it's funny. You know, there was the thing with him and his mustache against Fitzpatrick's beard. I'm all there for it. I'm similar with you on his progression, right? Like, I think he could be the bridge guy, or I think he'll be one of those guys that's like a Nick Foles, and he's an amazing, amazing backup. Like he will be a top 3 backup quarterback in the league, right? But if he's starting a full 16 games, it's not necessarily ideal. He's more in there as a stopgap. And I was going to ask you too, like, what do you think his value is in a trade? Because that is a good known valuable commodity. Being able to
trade a 4th round pick for Gardner Minshew.
4th round, like early 4th or end of 4th?
Yeah, end of 4th. Like, to me, he's
rounder then.
Yeah, but I don't know why you would trade for Gardner Minshew. That's my thing. Like, why would you trade for Gardner Minshew?
Quarterback and wanted a good backup.
Maybe, but I feel like there's enough guys out there where you don't. To me, Gardner Minshew, for that, if you're looking for that guy, you don't need to pay a premium or pay extra to get him. Like, I think the guy in Carolina, their backup, PJ Walker, in the little heat played, I think he has a pretty nice arm. I think he's got an opportunity to be one of those guys. I like him.
I would probably go end of 3rd, early 4th. I don't know. So he was taken in the 5th round, and he's exceeded expectations.
Was he taken in the 7th?
That's going to come in, and you're going to surround him with a good team, and he's still going to win 12 games. No. He can play he can play 3, 4, 5 games and keep you competitive. And I think
he was taken in the 6th.
He was the 6th. Okay. But yeah, like he has physical limitations. Like, he doesn't have a huge arm. He's like more of a high floor type of guy. Like, he's not going to get like that much better. But I think there is value in there. If you had extra 3rd or an early 4th, like a couple 4ths, like, I would not be mad with parting ways with a 4th for a known commodity as a backup quarterback. And I don't think he'll be that expensive either.
Fair enough. Okay, guys. So we've hit about an hour, 30 minutes. So we're just going to take one more question here and call it. I really got some homework to get to. I know Blake's you got some, actually, you don't really got schoolwork, right? Because you're working.
I got a little homework.
Oh, so Blake's doing his internship right now. So he's chilling. He's just got work, 8 to 5, and then you're a little free.
As of now, it varies every day, so we'll see.
Yeah. For now, I guess. Yeah. So, would you rather take an edge or a quarterback? And for the 49ers, I get you're asking specifically for the 49ers, but if you don't mind, I'm going to take your question and I'm just going to ask it in more of a draft philosophical sense. So, to me, those are 2 of the 4 premium positions that you take in the first round. To me, it's quarterback, edge rusher, left tackle, or tackle in general, and then cornerback. So would you take an edge rusher, or would you take a cornerback in general?
I'd go edge rusher.
Me too.
A high quality edge rusher is just typically more valuable than a high quality cornerback. But I don't think the discrepancy is as bad as we may make it seem. I really think a lockdown quarterback can open up things for you that can allow you to do more exotic blitzes, send more guys, because you trust that dude on an island. Like Jair Alexander versus, like, say, a really good
Nick Bosa
edge, like a Myles Garrett. Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett. Like, I'd rather have the edge rusher, right? But I don't think it's that much different. Like, I think there's definitely edges definitively better, but I don't think it's terribly like you don't take a guy because he's a corner edge prospect.
No, To me, it's 100% close. And to me, if the cornerback prospect is better than the edge rusher prospect, it's not a positional value drop off where you take the worst prospect because you need the position. If the corner prospect is better than the edge rusher, I'm taking the corner. But to me, if both the prospects are rated the exact same, I'm taking the edge rusher. And it's for a simple thing. And it's for something I learned very early when I started learning football from people and reading about football. It's because if you have a special edge rusher, he can protect both your cornerbacks by getting pressure on the quarterback. So both your cornerbacks have to cover for less time. If you have a special cornerback, he locks up one side of the field, but he doesn't protect that other cornerback and he doesn't help your pass rush. And if your pass rush isn't good, ultimately you can avoid throwing against that cornerback. But you can't really avoid that special edge rusher from affecting the game. One way or another, Nick Bosa is going to affect the game, whether he takes on triple teams, whether he's constantly in your backfield getting pressure. And so for that reason, I would take the special edge rusher. And I'm going to let's just touch on it real quick for the 49ers. I know cornerbacks in need. I haven't really gotten into it. Maybe we'll find out that one of these corners is a Marlon Humphrey. It's a special cornerback prospect that can be a Marlon Humphrey, a Jair Alexander, Jalen Ramsey, and the Niners have to take him. And I don't think there's any big-time edge rushers in this draft, at least not that anybody's talking about, like a Chase Young or a Nick Bosa.
This is a bad draft for edge rushers,
right?
Top-tier prospects.
But ultimately, I would much rather have an edge to pair with Nick Bosa, especially because I think Dee Ford's injuries are giving out. So I would rather have the edge to pair with Nick Bosa than taking the corner at 12.
Okay.
I would.
But here's the thing. So if you're the Niners GM and you do draft the edge, you're cutting Dee Ford then presumably. And
I mean, this is all with the presumption that Dee Ford's body has just given out and that there's medically that's why they need the edge rusher.
Okay. And then would you go about signing cornerbacks that you had on your team already? Would you draft middle round guys? Would you look elsewhere to like Kevin King?
So for me, Jason Verrett it's regardless of whether you draft a corner, regardless of whether you draft an edge rusher or whatever, you got to bring back Jason Verrett. So that's one. And then the route I would go is I would look at Shaq Griffin and Kevin King, two guys with physical traits, two guys that were below average starters, but have the talent to come in and compete for the other side starting job because they just have to be a number 2 or number 3 corner. They bring depth. And so that's what I would do.
Interesting. So if I'm the Niners, I would probably go corner just on the fact that they don't have a lot of dudes. And as much as I think they should sign Jason Verrett, I'm still concerned about the dude's health. Like when he's healthy, he's a really good corner, right? Like he's totally worth his contract and whatnot. And he plays well, but there's been a lot of times, pretty much his whole career, sans like 2 years, where he's actually been able to play the majority of the games. So that's concerning to me. Maybe it's because the Packers fan in me remembers the 2016 season, the 2017 season when, all of our corners were down. We didn't have Demarius Randall, Sam Shields was gone, and we were starting Ladarius Gunter in the NFC Championship game. You do not want that to happen. It's a scary sight to see. Like, he did well for being an undrafted free agent, but like as good as those edge rushers are, they're not going to be able to like get to the pass rusher or the quarterback, in under like 2.5 seconds every play.
Yeah. I mean, fair. It's fair points, I guess. We're just going to have to agree to disagree on this one. Maybe we can have this conversation a bit more in depth next time. So guys, we've gone on for about an hour, 38 minutes. We really got to go. We really appreciate you sticking with us. I know there were a few questions we didn't get to. We'll definitely do more Q&As throughout the offseason. We can definitely hit a lot of basketball too. We're going to get some more basketball videos out soon. It's been a little while since we talked about basketball. I know somebody asked about how Steph Curry's been doing this month. And I mean, can you even put it into words? It's been spectacular. It's been beyond amazing. It's awesome. So yeah, we really appreciate you guys sticking with us. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Please like, subscribe to our channel, share our content if you enjoy it. We'll definitely cut up this and put some videos out for you guys. We hope you enjoy. Thank you so much.